Yes, that was a great session, previous session. I missed the entire part because I was in the quiet room, but I hope that you still have the energy to listen to me and learn something from me before we eat our lunch. Yeah, so thank you for your time today. So today, just to like 2 minutes late already, I'm gonna be speaking about cloud development with Azure Developer CLI. Have you heard of it? You did. Have you worked with it? No, okay, mix. All right, so I will be giving a copy of my book. Last year, I was invited by Callum and Marcin to speak at Umbraco Coffee. And last year, my first Umbraco Codegarden, I was halfway of this book, and I'm so glad to be back here a second time with the finished book, with a physical copy I could show you. So after my session, if you have the most interesting question, or maybe hardest question you could give me before you eat lunch, you're gonna be one of the lucky winners. But scan the QR code because you also get a chance to get the ebook from me. So, who have talked to AI many times for the past few months? You did? What do you think about their answers? The AI answer. Yes. Yes. So this morning, while I was at the hotel waiting for my breakfast, I asked Microsoft Copilot a question. And it's a question about what are the common challenges that we as developers face when it comes to developer productivity and collaboration. And this was the answer of Copilot. And I really liked the answer because it categorized the two things that I asked about. First, it's about developer productivity, and then second is team collaboration. And then when you think about the developer productivity, the first one is about the interruption of flow state. And then the second one is the iteration speed. Sometimes it takes time for us to move from development to deployment and to testing and to production because we have to collaborate and think. And then another one that it highlighted is poor leadership. We don't control or we can't choose sometimes who are our bosses, who are our leaders. Of course, we can be the leader who we want to be, but there are factors like the number 2 to 5 that are really interesting. And what do you think about this list that AI gave me? It's actually the first answer, and I'm satisfied with the answer of Copilot. What do you think about it? Can you relate? Yes? And what I thought was interesting in relevance to this talk is about lack of collaborative infrastructure or tools. And one of its recommendation and how we could improve this, of course, is communication between the teams and also using the right collaboration tools for everybody, regardless if you're a developer, you're a tester, or you're a project leader. So today, I'm going to be sharing about Azure Developer CLI in the perspective of teamwork and collaboration, as well as developer productivity. And developer productivity is different for each of us. I work as an IT consultant, remote IT consultant for the last 3 years in Sweden. And developer productivity means different to everybody. To me, being able to deliver and to collaborate with my colleagues is being productive. Also, not being distracted at the same time. So, to those of you who have not seen me before on Codegarden, I'm a person who's get on stage a lot to inspire tech to others. But I also have a normal job as a senior Azure consultant at Solidify, and I'm very active at the community as community leader of Azure User Group Sweden. I wrote a book And yeah, I teach a lot. I'm very passionate about what I do. So who among you have developed Azure Web Apps? All of us. So this is a very simple infrastructure, right? I mean, simple one. We have a web app, and then you have some deployment slots for different stages. You have the identity. You also have the databases that you, for this case, it's an Azure SQL Server. There's also monitoring. So this is the typical, like, simple one. There are more complex architecture than this. And to those of you that works with Umbraco, this is an Umbraco community. You all are aware that you can also host your Umbraco CMS on an app service. So I also would like you to encourage to try that out. I haven't worked a lot with it because I usually develop .NET apps directly to an app service. But in this session today, I will, if our time permits, I'm going to try to give you a demo of container apps, like an app hosted in a container that was deployed using Azure Developer CLI. So when you start a project to the cloud or any application development, usually, for example, if it's a POC or a migration or a new project, you would need these things. You need to do planning with your team. You have to decide, is it a POC, proof of concept, or it's an update of an existing project? You need to choose the right team, the development team, who are the QA testers, who are the Scrum team that will build this POC or project, for example. Who's responsible for what? What technology stack are we going to use? And the tools that we're going to use for collaboration. So these are the things that I listed out. It came up in my developer life as a consultant working with a different project, including a migration project. When it comes to technology stack, you also have to think about what front-end framework are we going to use? Are we going to use Angular, or there are different frameworks, back-end, C#, Java, all those other things. The pipelines, the DevOps, are we going to inject security within our DevOps? Are we going to use Azure DevOps, GitHub, and other things? There's Jenkins also, so there are a lot of things. Infrastructure as code. Who have coded some infrastructure as code? Terraform, Bicep? Bicep, okay. Are you going to fight now? You can learn. We're like a friendly developers. We can learn from each other. I code. It's so ironic because I speak a lot about Azure, and Azure go for default Bicep. But in my work, I code a lot of Terraform every day for infrastructure. So yes, it's ironic, right? And then the cloud. There's so many. There's Umbraco Cloud. There's AWS. There's Google Cloud. There is also Microsoft Azure, of course. And then the testing and automation. How are you gonna do it? So there's a lot of puzzles that you need to connect in order to even get started for the first step when you start a project. And if you're part of the team, it is actually a challenge. It takes time, and at the same time, it is also very exciting. But when you, regardless if it's a new project or an existing project or a POC, one thing that I noticed personally, I'm not sure if you can also relate to this, but there's source code everywhere. As a developer, we like reading codes. We love it. We build it. We read it. But if it's everywhere, it can also distract us. And if it's a system that we never worked before, we always need a mentor to teach us, someone senior to us to help us get onboarded. And I'm seeing the source code as everywhere as one of the challenges for those that are new in the project. So for example, when I was new in my project that I have had now for 3 years, I had a challenge to get onboarded because our source code control were in Bitbucket for the application code, but our infrastructure as code is in Azure repos, and our project management is in Jira, and then our CI/CD pipelines is in Azure again. So there is a lot of service connections going on in between them. So if you're new, you really need someone senior to really guide you, or a good documentation to help them get onboarded. So developer productivity matters, and who agrees to it? Yes. Not too many hands. You're very hungry now, right? I hope you have a good lunch. I like the chicken and the potatoes meal last night. So let's see what we get for lunch today. Okay. And too much distractions affects the flow we have in our brains. So even if you're coding, you're trying to fix a bug or solving something, even a tiny pop-up notifications on Teams or Slack can actually affect our flow. And there's always there's a study that can prove that as well. So I won't get into the details of that, but I'm sure you can relate. And a good example of a distraction in real life is this. You can, sometimes when we fix a bug, I'm not sure, it's not against the testers, I'm sorry if there's a tester here, but it's just one example I saw, a GIF that I saw that I could relate very much. So I have a lot of, like in my developer life, I always have to fix bugs, build something. But when you fix a bug, you spend a lot of hours solving it, you fix it, and then you pass it to the QA. QA are not satisfied with it, and it's another back and forth distraction. So therefore, collaboration is very important. So Developer CLI, ACD is the shortcut for that. It is known to be empowered by ACD commands. I highlighted ACD because it's a CLI, so you literally use the keyword ACD when you use the tool. It is open source. That's why it's good to share it also with Umbraco community, because we go for collaboration, community, and open source. It's polyglot, meaning it's not restricted to one specific language, not just C#, but it's open for JavaScript, Node.js, C#, or even Python for building AI solutions. And it fosters or encourages collaboration, because it is a tool, a CLI tool, developer tool, that QA testers or developers, DevOps, platform engineers, and even architects or infrastructure, those that codes infrastructure as code, can work in the same workspace. It's developer-centric, meaning it's not only meant for developers, it's more focused on the developer flow from the beginning of the infrastructure creation up to deployment to production. So it's very focused on speed, delivery, and collaboration. Let me just drink some water, like is it the bicep or the Terraform guy? Which I'm confused. Oh, you're the bicep guy. I'm gonna show you some bicep code soon, because this example is in bicep. Let me just drink. Did you notice I have a friendly there? That's from last year. I got my first sticker, and I love it. And the hat, of course. So this is the Azure Developer CLI. So you know, if you're coding front end, there's like bootstraps. So this is like the bootstrap of Azure in the form of the entire infrastructure as a blueprint or a boiler template. So there is a site called akmsawesome.acd, and then when you go there, it's open source. It's also in GitHub. You will be able to search for template depending on what you're trying to get, like for example C#, or if it's a database or app service. And you can filter if you want to have the templates that were created by Microsoft or created by the community. And if you're someone that has a project that you built with this tool, it's open source, you are very welcome, and they actually encourage you to to deploy it or to share it to the community. And that's what I like about this, because you're not paying for it, but you are also someone that can create something and give it back to others. Probably an organization can use your project as well. And if you have installed the tool in your computer locally, you can go to the website, of course, and then clone the repo. But you can also see the list by doing the command acd template list on that. And you will get a lot of examples. Like, for example, here you see function C# to create a function app with AI. There's one to-do template for MongoDB, Python. So there's a lot of options, and they're building it up all the time. So how does the workflow looks like? As I said, Azure Developer CLI is ruled by the acd commands, right? And there are only like 4 or 5 commands to think about. So that's the purpose also. You don't need to memorize a lot of tools. I mean command for the workflow as a CLI tool. So when it comes to initial setup and deployment, first you need to decide what's your use case. You choose the right template, you and your team. And then the first setup, after you installed all the tool locally, you would need to choose the command acd init, just like when you initialize, like git init. So it's the same concept, acd init, and then you choose your template. So that's the commands, acd init, -- template, and then the name of your template. And then when your template is there, you code the backend, the front end, the Azure, the DevOps pipeline. And the important YAML or configuration files that you have is there's one for infrastructure, there's for the dev environment for Azure, and there's also the Azure YAML, which kind of where you describe the infrastructure that you have for the cloud. And then when you're done collaborating with your team, front-end developers, back-end, and even the testing part, DevOps as well, infrastructure is code, project is ready, all is merged, then it's time to do the acd up, which is the command for deploying everything, including the pipelines, to Azure. And what if we need to make changes after deployment? You can also do that. So you just make your changes in the shared workspace, backend or frontend, and then you do acd deploy. It's gonna push, you just do the commit, and then that command, and then it deploys directly to Azure with the CI/CD pipelines. One thing I want to share, though, you might be thinking, Jonah, I used the template that's open source, it's public. I downloaded it or cloned it, and then I just coded up for our project. How does the security or identity work? So there's actually, when you do an acd app, this is a step I missed sharing in between. When you do acd app, there's actually an authentication being controlled. So it will ask you, if you do acd app and your VS Code or your IDE is not linked to Azure, it will ask you to authenticate yourself. So if you have Azure Intra ID, not Azure AD, it will ask you to authenticate yourself using the authenticator. And then when all looks good, then it will tell you, now you're logged in, you can continue with the commands that you're trying to do. So this is the workflow, as a summary, of course. So init to initialize, up to deploy. There's also acd deploy, if you want to iterate your changes and then deploy again. And then there's also another command which is optional. It's called acd provision. If you are making changes with your infrastructure as code, then that's the command. And usually the tool is very smart enough to detect what are the files that you've changed, that it tells you, hey, this is the command that you need to do. But there are literally 4 or 5 commands. There's actually 5. There's a monitor tool as well. This is for observability or monitoring. It is not embedded in VS Code, but if you do the ACD monitor with all the postfix here, depending on what you're trying to show, like logs or live metrics, it will open up the application insights or Azure Monitor in a web browser. And while you're developing locally, it will show you the live metrics while you're remote debugging with Azure or the cloud applications that are deployed there. So, how does the ACD project folder looks like? So it looks like that. Everything is in one shared place. It's very small, maybe. We'll do the Zoom version soon. So let's go for the first section. So there's a section called the DevOps section, I call it, because there are several. So there is a folder where you can configure your Azure DevOps. There's for GitHub. And then there's also a section for dev container, if you're deploying your infrastructure to a dev container. And then GitHub. You can choose how you configure it. You can remove, delete, customize. So the template is just there as a guide, but you yourself can actually create your custom template and use the tool yourself when you want to deploy your infrastructure applications to Azure. So it's not like you're locked, oh, this is the template, I need to use it. No, you're actually have the freedom to build it up with your own custom use case. And then the next one is infrastructure as code. The bicep guy. Are you happy now? So infrastructure as code. I hope the Terraform guys and girls are sad now. Just kidding. So the default is actually bicep for ACD. It's because it's Azure, Microsoft, yes. So infrastructure as code folder has the default bicep, regardless of whatever template you choose. However, you do have the option to configure it up or use Terraform. So there's a really good guide in the Microsoft Learn website to do that. So you can also, there's no limitation for that. So the infrastructure as code folder, as you can see, there's the app where you have all the resources. In this case, you have the service bus, because in my example, I have Azure Service Bus, Azure Container Apps, and as an infrastructure. And then the core part is like the default, you have it in categories. There's a category if you want to build it up with AI, database, the gateway, monitoring, the search part. So you can also configure it up, but it's already prepared for you. And what I like personally on this tool is that even if you're not so expert coder of bicep, if you understand code, it's easier for you to follow through. And it's more of, to me, the tool is very inclusive to others, or to everybody, regardless of expert level. So it's really a tool for collaboration. Source code folder. This is where our source code is. This is we as developer are very interested to get into and collaborate together. So the source code includes both the front end and the back end. And in this screenshot that I have, it is the back end that is showing here right now. There's also test section for the testers or QA to build automated tests or unit tests. And then lastly, the one important YAML file in the ACD template is the Azure.yaml. It automatically generates itself, depending on what you're building or what template it is. But here is an example of the infrastructure of layout of the Azure Container Apps example that I have in this template. So here you see it's a template, pub/sub, a Docker C# with service bus. And then it has two containers, the orders and the checkout. The language tells you what language it is. If it's JavaScript, it's going to tell you that as well. But in this case, it is C#. So how do you get started? So there are different ways you can work locally. You can also use GitHub Codespaces, which is a very good tool if you want to develop on the web, on the go. And then dev containers, it also has support for that. If you don't want to do the installation, the PowerShell stuff, you have VS Code, so you can definitely just install the extension, and it will allow you to develop with those CLI tool as well. This is how it looks in Codespaces, exactly like VS Code, but it's just on the web. And then debugging. I forgot, there's 6 commands. They're not just 5. So there's also a way for you to do remote debugging. So when you do ACD app, instead of just like literally deploying it, you can actually add the tag or postfix debug if you want to do enable debugging. And then if you want to do debugging with saved on a text file, you can also configure your path for that. So it's really good if you're working or trying to fix what's wrong with your API or backend or frontend, how they talk to each other. So it's going to be demo time soon. Probably not because I have 3 minutes, but I'm going to show you some screenshot of my demo I prepared. So this is my example app. So in Azure, there's a serverless container service called Azure Container Apps. And it is boxed in an Azure Container App environment. You can have several containers. Like in your container, you can have app service or an Azure functions inside it. But this architecture or use case is like, what do you call that? An order or a web shop where you have a publisher and a subscriber. One for use for checkout and one is for ordering. And then it has this technology called Dapper, where you do sidecar, one of the technologies with containers today. So it can run both of the microservices at the same time, and it uses service buses like a pub sub event, what do you call that, subscriber service. So I think I will skip the code demo. I have actually that one. I only have 2 minutes. But maybe I should try quickly just to show. Let's see. So this is how it looks. I won't run the container maybe locally, but this is how the project looks like. So this is the Azure folder where I have different environments. Like it could be dev, UAT, production. So you can create that. And then there's one for GitHub. And this one, checkout and order processor, are my 2 source code folders for one container for checkout. It has a program.cs inside it where I have some C# code. And then there's also another container for order processing. And as you can see, it implements the Dapper in the system references. And then there's the infrastructure that I also showed in the screenshot and stuff like that. But I want to show you that when you work locally, you have to have the Docker desktop engine running. Test it first locally. Does it look good? And then you can deploy it. And when you deploy it, it actually asks you to have your Docker desktop running. Otherwise, the deployment will fail. So moving forward, let me just continue here. So when I did the ACD app, it will ask you what Azure subscription you're going to deploy it to. So I choose one of my subscriptions. And then, just like when you deploy an app service to Azure, you're going to use your Azure region. So the CLI will ask you, where would you want to deploy it? To East US or to other regions? And then you're going to have, it's going to try to package all the containers. I did a screenshot. This is actually from this morning before I took my breakfast. So I was like up early. So I did a screenshot as a backup in case I run out of time. But I think I did a smart thing. So when I did ACD up, it's trying to package all the containers, as you can see there, the checkout and the orders containers. And then it's going to try to publish it. It's going to tell you what it's doing on the CLI. And then, while it was doing, I was actually doing my makeup. And usually when I do my makeup, it takes like 10, 15 minutes. But this one was faster, and I was so impressed. I was like doing a timer like clock, and it took 8 minutes. I was trying to beat it, like I left it and I was in the bathroom, and I said, oh, I need to do a screenshot and do an arrow on this one. So it's actually quick for deploying to containers. And how are those resources look like after the 6 minutes deployment? It looked like this. So I was also prepared to show this instead of doing the demo. So when I did the ACD in it, I named my demo Codegarden 2024. And then when it deployed, it actually showed or deployed all the containers, the service bus, the monitoring inside it, and there I can continue work on that. So I'm out of time, and you have so much to learn, or much to learn you still have, as Yoda would say it. And I have more knowledge to share with you. I mean, I usually do this talk 60, 90 minutes with more code demo, but I have like 30 minutes today. I would encourage you to learn by doing with the information that I shared to you today. And I did blog about this, so if you have time to read, you can check out the blog I did on this as a contribution to Azure Back to School community. And I heard that Danish people, they understand Swedish, but I don't understand Danish. If you like to listen about Azure Developer CLI in a podcast setup when I spoke Swedish, I was also interviewed by that at Microsoft Partner Sweden podcast. Recommended learning resources, you will get a copy of this presentation as well on the app, so you can scan the QR or get the presentation later. Feel free to check it out, learn by doing. And while you're learning, learn while having fun. That is my dog, a Labradoodle, 3 years old, Lawrence. And this was how he enjoys rolling in the snow, especially when it was melting. The snow is gone in north of Sweden, where we are, because it's summer. He started rolling on the grass instead. So he's white, so he ends up having green toes and green fur everywhere. So feel free to check this book as well on the presentation. You get a free copy. And thank you so much. Feel free to reach out and ask questions at the back if you want to have a copy of my book. So thank you so much.